Will you repeat the first thing that you said to us when you came up here? You can't, the statement about you can't love your life if you hate the experience.
You can't love who you are if you hate the experiences that shaped you. I was sharing with Zoe earlier that for a long time, right, I looked at my life and I kind of viewed it as a scarlet letter. I was ashamed of it. I wouldn't say I'm proud of it now. I would never be proud of how I lived my life. But I am proud of what I've done with it since. And that I lead my life and I lead everything with using my story to help others get from where they are, where they currently are, to where I am. I'm taking that part of my life and all those bad experiences and bringing them forward to help other people. So I no longer hate those experiences. If I could go back and do it all over again, people ask all the time, would you go back and do it again? That's a really hard question to answer because I wouldn't be doing the work I'm doing today and be able to affect so many lives from all over the world and all over the country, helping people change lives if I didn't go through that. It's not the kind of thing you can learn in school. While most people were going to Penn State, I was going to the state Penn. But I learned things there that you can't learn in school about this population. But it's a universal, the principles are universal. They can be applied in any organization. That's why the police brought their entire police force to the Other Side Academy. I said to Jack, why don't we do this? He said, absolutely. And 90 police officers went there and trained. Who'd have thunk? Right, I have to pull the pictures up, but who'd have thunk that the ex-felons and ex-drug addicts would be teaching the police how to call each other on their behaviors? And I told all the cops in that room, if you've got a badge and you've got a gun, but you can't call each other on your shit, you shouldn't be in law enforcement. It's critical. So the whole purpose of this is the 200% accountability. Are you being accountable to yourself? Are you being accountable to others? Are you being transparent? If you've done something, do you own it? If you see something, do you say something? And now, at the beginning, I said it's going to make you uncomfortable, right? I know it made some of you uncomfortable. Who did it make uncomfortable? A couple hands go up, right? Why is that?
For me?
Yeah.
I think it's uncomfortable just being vulnerable, saying, hey, Dave, I noticed that you're not doing well today. What's going on? My tendency is I've got a checklist of things I need to do, and it's a lot easier to manage my checklist than it is people.
Yeah. Somebody else raise their hand. Why does it make you uncomfortable?
I think the reason it makes you uncomfortable just because it's the true in life. I mean, listen to your stories, my lifehood, stuff like that. I can make different decisions all along my life. I've worked 2 jobs my whole entire life, and I love what I do, and I can trust everyone here. So
yeah, that's important. You know, in our world at the Other Side Academy, I call it cancer. And what I mean by that is, as soon as we interview you and we bring you there, the day you get there, you're brand new. You've got a clean slate. You don't hold your past against you. You've got a clean slate. But again, you get there, you're clean and you're sober. You don't have drugs in your system, and drugs are not the problem. They never are. There's always underlying issues. The problems are, and the reason why, and I don't want to get in the weeds too much, but the reason why the 30, 60, 90-day models don't work too well is you get there, you stay there for 30, 60, or 90 days, and you just hold on and you white knuckle it. But if you get there, the liar, the cheater, the thief, the manipulator, the violent person, all that, and all you do is get clean and sober, who gives a shit? I think using that word, that term, clean and sober, should be a felony. I'm so tired of hearing it. We're killing more people than we're helping. It should be about whole person change. It's easy to get people clean and sober. I'll just take you to jail, put you in a cell, leave you in a cell for a year. If you're in a cell by yourself, there's no drugs, what are you?
clean and sober.
What do you do the day you leave? Go to Flacco's house to pick up. Getting clean and sober is not the answer. Whole person change is the answer. The reason why I say that is, when you come to us, when you get to the Other Side Academy, you have an inappropriate conversation with Kevin, we ask you not to. Now you've got a little bit of that dust in there, that cancer. Then when you're down in laundry, you steal those socks because yours has a hole in it, so you take somebody else's socks. Now you have more of that cancer. Then you pass a note to a girl, we ask you not to do that. Now you've got more of that cancer. Pretty soon, you've got all these things you've done, compromises, and you've got what I call cancer in your stomach. You know you've done something wrong, you haven't owned it, you're not accountable, and when you start doing something wrong, then you do something else wrong, then you do something else wrong, then you see somebody else doing something bad for them, but you can't say anything because you feel like a hypocrite because you've got all that cancer. And then pretty soon, boom, stage 4, metastatic cancer, your life blows up. Some of us sitting in this room have experienced that. So we ask you to be accountable. It's part of the 200% accountability. If you've done something wrong, own it. If you see someone doing something wrong, own it. The world is a better place when we hold each other accountable. Not a worse place. It is a better place when we hold each other accountable. When I'm being held accountable, when I am holding somebody else accountable, when I know that Kevin's not going to allow me to do something that's bad for me, that's a friend. Do I have a little bit of time? Who has a pen? I just want to share with you some more principles, and it might seem a little bit graphic. May I? One of the reasons why people struggle so much is in their interpersonal relationships and what we consider to be love, right? And for us, right, drug addicts, all of my population, 100% of them have never been in a healthy relationship. They either use, and they use with their partner, so that relationship is already toxic. I don't care what anybody thinks. If you're using and they're using, the relationship's toxic. You're holding each other's secrets and you're allowing people to do things that are bad for them. And if I'm a drug addict and I'm dating somebody who isn't, the person I'm dating doesn't drink, doesn't use, isn't a criminal. If you're a drug addict and a criminal, who are you dating?
Drug addicts and criminals.
Drug addict and criminal. So the relationship's already toxic, but we don't see it that way. And if I'm dating somebody who isn't, she needs more help than I do. Because she's allowing me to do those things in her presence. She is allowing me in her home with her kids while I'm living that lifestyle. That relationship is toxic. Most people don't understand what a healthy relationship is. What a healthy relationship is, when I see Kevin do something wrong, Kevin, we don't do that here. Go to his boss and let him know. Oh, you guys are mostly thinking I can't do that. Well, no, you can. That's what allows companies to become healthy. And what a lot of drug addicts do, and a lot of people who are doing the wrong thing is, we'll do drugs with the person we claim we care about, and then we'll hand it to the person and say, I love you. You're smiling right now, right? But that's what it is. We think we're in a healthy relationship. A healthy relationship is when you call the person you call a friend on their behaviors, and they call you on theirs. There's no other way I can put it. So if you're hanging around people and they're doing things you know are wrong and you're not saying anything, that isn't what a friend does. If you're doing things you're not supposed to be doing and people are watching you do it, not saying anything, that's not a friend. Now, I'm to challenge my thinking. I'm listening. Somebody challenge my thinking.
Dead on, buddy.
I'm sorry?
You're dead on. You're right.
How's it work with your wife?
The same. So my wife is in recovery. She's been in recovery now for about 6 years. And we have a wonderful relationship. And I would never allow, if I, relapse or, I don't even want to call it relapse. I hate those terms. Drug addiction is not a disease. I don't give a shit what anybody says. It's a choice, just like everything else. And everybody in this room knows who does not know the difference between right and wrong? Me too. When I was out there doing what I was doing, and I'll get to that, Ken. When I was out there living the life I was living, I knew it was wrong. I was choosing to do it anyway. I deserved to go to jail and I deserved to go to prison. People say, well, people make mistakes. Well, you're right, they do. If I forget to set my alarm tonight, I wake up late in the morning, that's a mistake. If Kevin and I are driving down the street, we're having a spirited conversation, and I blow that light, that was a mistake. I'm not paying attention. When I make a decision, a conscious decision, a calculated decision to do something that's wrong, that's not a mistake. That's a conscious decision to do the wrong thing. And the reason why we're struggling in this country, and the reason why things are getting worse, is we make excuses for people now. We call them mistakes. They're not mistakes. When you think about it, when you know the consequences, when you're calculating and you do them anyway, that's not a mistake. You thought it through. You knew what the consequences were, and you did it anyway. You deserve whatever you got coming. I was sharing with Zoe earlier. I was on my way home from St. George yesterday, and I got a bleep on my phone, and it was an article about a guy. I don't even tell you his name. His name is Jazz Rockwood. He's over here in Utah County Jail. He's in Utah County Jail because his 10-month-old baby got into a spent mill. OD. Look it up. Jazz Rockwood. It's big news right now. 10 months old. They had to narc on a baby twice. 5 days before that, he was in the hospital, OD. They let him go. He has a record. If they put him in jail, that doesn't happen to the baby. People say we can't incarcerate our way out of the problem. You're right, we can't, but we can put the criminals, people who are endangering other people, in jail. That's what they're designed for. It keeps the community safe from us. Why is that important? Again, it's 200% accountability. The reason why we have the problems we do, and the reason why Kevin and Darren are trying to do what they're doing here with this organization, is to have people hold each other accountable, to have a healthy organization for you to work in and partially own, correct? But you can't do it holding secrets. It'll never work. It will not work. I don't care what you think. It will not work. When people are held accountable, it creates incentive to change. And all of us need to become better. And I only share that story because it just recently happened. And people keep saying, well, you know, it's an accident. It was this, it was that. We just keep making excuses for people. If we continue to make excuses for people in this room, guess what's going to happen? It'll fail. It'll fail. History repeats itself.
If you don't learn from history, you're bound to repeat it.
Yeah. So, Ken, to answer your question with my wife, we hold each other accountable. We have a remarkable relationship. You know, and that's what a real relationship is calling even your wife or your husband or your girlfriend or your boyfriend. If you allow them to do things that aren't good for them, do you really care? Love is telling the truth. But two things have to be present at the same time. The only reason why we're as successful as we are at the Other Side Academy is because love and truth are present at the same time. What does that mean? If all I ever do is yell at one of my students because they're sneaky and manipulating and doing all this crazy stuff that led them there, if all I do is yell at them and call them on their behaviors, that's me. If all I do is love them, right, and not call them on their behaviors, that's permission to continue with the same behavior. Love and truth have to come together at the same time. They have to be present at the same time. Love and truth. People are always saying, well, just all we need is more love. Truth is love. If I see you doing something wrong and I care about you and I don't say something, I don't care about you. If you're leaving and you're leaving work and you're going out to lunch and you're having a few drinks and you're coming back and operating heavy equipment and I don't say anything, do I love you or not give a shit? I don't give a shit. And the problem with that is there's other underlying things too. When we're doing something wrong, we're not holding each other accountable, and we get that little bit of cancer in our belly, we show up differently. I show up differently with you. I show up differently with you. If I know you're doing something wrong and you know I know, our relationship changes. I show up differently. Because I can't show up my authentic self. Because we're holding each other's secrets. Do you guys understand what I'm saying?
I mean, how do you love somebody when they hurt somebody else? When they're doing something like how do we actually do that?
Yeah, I'll share with you. So, Jordan Holdaway now runs my construction department. We do construction all over the state. Flat concrete work, remodels, bathrooms, kitchens, you name it. He's the only student who's now a staff member who I allowed to get their contractor's license. But when he first came to us, he's been to prison 3 times already, been arrested about 40 times. Came to us, we were still relatively new. He had more freedoms than he should have had. He was going out, about 6 months into his stay, we found out that he went out and used a phone. You're not allowed to do that. He called his girlfriend. The relationship's toxic. She took the call. She didn't say anything. She's co-signing his behavior. He got a 2-week contract. All that means is he was on restriction for 2 weeks, right? But there's consequences. 6 months later, he did it again. 6 months later, he did it again. Has nothing to do with using the phone. It has to do with, I need to manipulate the people I'm with. They go to the bathroom, I'll go over here, I need to get to the front desk, I need to ask if I can borrow a phone. I'm being sneaky. I'm doing something the organization asks me not to do. 3 times he did it in the first 20 months. We find out, I have a decision to make. He's going to graduate in a couple months. I can let him graduate the same person that came in. And I took a chance. I kicked him out, walked him outside the door, brought him back in, sat him on the bench, re-interviewed him, started him all over again. That was 6 years ago. He is a completely different person today. Had I let him graduate, the same person that came in, and not hold him accountable to those decisions and not start him over again, he's one of my most trusted employees. I don't have to I trust him like he's my own son. Implicitly, that's how good of an employee he is. That's what we do. We hold you accountable. Sometimes we have to make tough decisions. I had to kick him out, bring him back in, and start him all over again. He did his whole stay all over again, then stayed another year, and then we hired him, and he's been with us ever since. I have another staff member named Bo. We don't drink at our facility. There's no drug use, even with staff. And he left. He went to Mexico. He came back. I tested him the next day. He was dirty. I fired him on the spot. Because there's rules. There's rules at the company you work at. There's rules everywhere. There's rules in your home where you live. If people break them, do you say something? If you invite people over and they're going and you've got boundaries in your home and they do something, do you say something? Of course we do. So, you know, what we don't do at the Other Side Academy is what you see a lot now in this country is we don't sugarcoat anything. And I've been really soft about the way I've presented this. We don't sugarcoat anything. We call you on your behavior with no lag time. And sometimes in very colorful vernacular. And people often say, well, what about their feelings? You guys are laughing. It's true, we do. Sometimes in very colorful vernacular. But here's the thing, when they say, well, what about their feelings? When I was out there running amok and I'm breaking into your home and stealing your guns and going out and committing crimes with them, did I care about your feelings? When I broke into your car, stole your wallet, and destroyed your credit by creating all kinds of other, right? Destroyed. Did I care about your feelings? When I stole your wife's purse when she was crossing the street and scared her half to death because I'm a drug addict, doing things and committing crimes, did I care about her feelings? Then don't come to our facility and start crying about your feelings. We're going to call you on your behaviors. You're going to be treated according to how you behave. And I'm not saying that that's how you do it here. I'm just saying that's what works with this population there. But the principles are the same. Hold each other accountable. Some of you look really uncomfortable. Some of you are laughing. Some of you like it, others are like, oh God, no, I don't want this. Any comments or any questions? Yes?
Is there anything considered as too small of a behavior?
No, that's a really good question. Is there anything considered too small of a behavior? So when you get there, we run down all the do's and the don'ts. If you get there, you just came out of jail, you came off the street, you're clean and you're sober, we tell you what the rules are. Listen, the reason why there's never been drugs in the facility, that's a big thing, right? It's because we focus on all the tiny things. I'm so glad she brought that up. Is there anything too small? Nothing's too small. You've got to take the small things and blow them up. If you focus on all the small things, the big things don't happen. The reason why Kevin, as a student in my facility, could never have drugs in his pocket is because he'd have to be over here whispering to him in the corner, and if someone just doesn't say anything, hey, we don't whisper here. But if he gets away with it, then this guy goes to work at the thrift store and he sneaks over to an office and she's keeping point for him and he gets on the phone and he's calling somebody. Then the girl comes to the thrift store, brings the tennis ball with the drugs in it and drops it up on the shelf. All kinds of things have to happen for him to get drugs in his pocket. That little thing he was doing, whispering with him, it gets called out. You snuff it out. Before he could use that phone, we caught her kind of looking like this, watching to see if someone was coming while he was on the phone. Every single tiny thing we focus on. That's how we can take a population that's been arrested on average 25 times and turn them into law-abiding, tax-paying, good human beings that go out there with a value-centered life of integrity coming from our background. It is the tiny things that matter. Oftentimes we're so focused on the big things. The big things are happening because the small things are being missed. Thank you for bringing that up. It is so critical that we focus on the little things, all the little things. Yes?
So if somebody gives you feedback, how do you receive it? What's your principle for receiving feedback?
I mean, if I got to go to groups...
I just said you were kind of an asshole, you were too loud, talking to that person, not appropriate. How do you receive that?
Okay.
You say okay.
It depends. I might disagree with you, and in a group setting, then we can have that dialogue in a group setting. You know, inside the breakthrough groups. It just depends on what it is. You may be 100% right. All right, I'll do better. You know, that's one of my phrases. I'll do better. I'll do better. I'll take a look at that. Or I might completely disagree with you, and we can have a pretty spirited conversation in that group because it's a controlled environment. That's what it's designed for. We don't let people at the Other Side Academy get caught up on the floor. If I see Kevin doing something wrong and I pull him up, hey, we don't do that here. All he can say on the floor is, okay. It's in those groups that he can take me in there and call me on my behavior. It's in those groups that we can have those spirited, sometimes colorful and vernacular conversations. But on the floor, it's just simply okay. That keeps people from getting in arguments on the floor. But when I go into a group, if you've got an indictment for me, I usually just say, okay, I'll take a look at that. I'll take the feedback.
Maybe one more question and wrap up.
One more question.
How do you decide who gets into your program?
How do we decide who gets in the program? It's a very robust interview. When I say robust, it's not like an interview to get a job. When I say robust, We're going to ask you a lot of questions, and really all we're doing is making eye contact with you and looking to see if there's a soul and a tiny fire in there that we can stoke. Are you ready for a 2.5-year minimum commitment? Are you ready to make an investment in your life? We're going to ask you, here's the funny thing. Can I just share this real quick? Oftentimes in the interview, our students have children. If they've been arrested 25 times, do they have children? No, they kick them down the street for other people to raise. So a lot of times I'll go, who has kids? I'll ask you, do you have kids? Do you love them? Yes or what?
I love it.
You love your kids? How old are they?
26 to 18.
So 26 to 18, but in most cases, right, they're, 2, 4, 8, 10, 12, 15. And I'll ask the person in the interview, do you love your kids? Yeah, I love them. We're in jail. You've been arrested 25 times. Your mouth just said you love your kids. How would you treat them if you hated them? You're choosing women, drugs, and prison and homeboys over your children. And if you've been in prison or jail 25 times, you don't even have them. So you kick them down the street for other people to raise. So when I say it's a robust interview, we're going to call you on that too. If you're in jail, you're choosing the things you're choosing to get you to jail over the things you claim you love because you don't know what the word means. So the interview can be if you can get through that interview process, you're probably ready to change. Okay, thanks you guys.